Hey, everybody, and welcome to As the World Works. Today, I got to tell you, I am super excited about our guest today. Longtime friend, mentor, colleague at Trammell Crow Company, Tony Long. He's got over 31 years experience and expansive knowledge in the commercial real estate world, including transactional management, asset management, strategic management, strategic planning, development, financing, and corporate outsourcing. And before leaving CBRE, Tony was the global president of client care. He did his undergraduate studies at the University of Texas at Austin, and then went on to get his MBA at Harvard. Now he serves on two boards, Altus and Gigamonster. So say hello to Tony Long, everybody.
Hello, Sam. It's great to be here with you.
It's great to have you. I can't even tell you what you've meant in my life from starting at Trammell Crow in 2000 and how you just, took me under your wing and anything I could do. You were way up the ladder. I was just a young pup starting out, but you always made me feel super welcome. And as the Trammell Crow world was back then, we were all in arm's length of each other to be able to share a lot of knowledge and get a lot of support. So I really appreciate what you've meant in my life over the years too. So thank you.
You bet. Those were some golden years. So that was a lot of fun. We slayed a lot of giants in those days.
That's right. That's right. How do you think, in that perspective, how do you think the world has changed from those early days when it was just kind of a different, seemed like a startup back then, even though it had been around for a while?
Yeah, no, it's funny. When I was reflecting on this, when I started at Trammell Crow Company back in the mid to late '80s, we didn't have email. And it was like the Wild West. But yeah, as technology came along and as the company scaled, it was a startup. It was a very small group of developers, and we sort of grew in different lines of business and all kinds of different parts of the industry. But the company really made a shift in the early '90s from a development company to a services company. And obviously you were a big part of that during your time in project management. And at that time, I was leading the Dallas office, and we had a lot of growth because that is the time in the company when we decided to get into brokerage and investment sales and mortgage brokerage and a lot of other things in addition to doing real estate development. But those really were some fun startup days.
So when you started, did you start as a broker and then go get your MBA at Harvard?
No, actually, I started with what was called Trammell Crow Ventures. And that actually evolved into what is now Trammell Crow Family, which is their, the Crow Family office. And I was an analyst. So I started for 2 years. I was an analyst in Trammell Crow Ventures. And I did a fair amount of work with what was the beginnings of Trammell Crow's outsourcing business, which is now grown into CBRE's outsourcing business, which is, about half the company's revenues. It's a big part of what they do for corporate America to help them with, projects, transactions, and basically consulting.
So when I started in 2000, it had already gone through an expansive iteration going public in 97. So things were already changing and growing. In fact, when I started, there were maybe 15 of us project managers. And then once we grew to corporate clients, I think we grew there. And the last I heard, there was, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 or 1,600 project managers worldwide.
Yeah.
So can you describe sort of your progression through the ranks at Trammell Crow Company and then CBRE?
Yeah, sure. I'll break it into sort of three big chunks. I was an analyst at the beginning, and then I went to Harvard Business School, got my MBA, and that was a 2-year program. And in between my first and second year at Harvard, I worked at Lehman Brothers as a summer associate doing some work in their finance area. And then I came back as a leasing agent, and that was my first decade, if you will. And so I leased properties in Dallas, mostly office, and I did mostly leasing, but I ended up doing some investment sales, and then at the very tail end of that, I did some office development. So, for example, the very first building I ever built was with Blackstone as my partner, and it's 5950 Sherry Lane there in Preston Center. You probably remember that. I think
I
you were
do.
there during that time. And so, right at the tail end of my brokerage development career, I was asked to run the Dallas office. And so, when I said yes to that part of my career, I started my second decade, which was basically the running of the business of Trammell Crow. So first I was the head of the Dallas office, and then a few years later was promoted to the head of the central region. And that was also a really fun time because I had 16 offices, from basically Minnesota through Mexico, and just had a great time building those offices and building our presence and hiring brokers and expanding into new lines of business in places like Chicago and Ohio and Illinois and in other places like that. And then the third decade started when CBRE purchased Trammell Crow, and I became the head of asset services. And that basically is the property management business, or essentially all of the lines of business that render services on behalf of investors in real estate other than capital markets and development. And so I basically started running this business for the United States. And after a couple of years, they asked me to take it global. And so I became the global head of asset services for CBRE, and flew all over the world and got to see a lot of different things. And we won big assignments. I think our largest big outsourcing we won was 100 million square feet from Reef. And that was just so much fun to be a part of that. And, another big assignment that we won was are you familiar with the Gherkin building in London? We won that leasing and management assignment. And then probably the pinnacle of all the assignments that I got to be a part of pitching and winning was the development services and commissioning of Shanghai Tower in downtown, Pudong district of Shanghai. And it's now still the second tallest building in the world. So I got
Yeah,
to,
that's when I tried to call you to have lunch, and you said, "Yeah, I'll be out of pocket for a minute. I'm in Shanghai." Putting together like a 1 billion square foot portfolio. I was like, okay, well, I'll be at Potbelly's just hanging out.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so those were really fun days. And in the final couple of years at CBRE, they asked me to take on this role of enterprise account management. And so I really tried to develop a program for managing the top 500 clients of the firm, and took on the role of essentially chief client officer of the firm, and did that for a period of 2 years, and then decided, that it was time at this stage in my life to kind of get back to basics. And I had begun investing as a limited partner with a very good friend of mine who had been a Trammell Crow partner as well, Brad Copeland. And so about a year and a half ago, the two of us started CLX Ventures. And we focus on really two things. We focus on multifamily development, and we focus on industrial development in Texas. And recently we've finished a 1 million square foot development close to the DFW airport. And as fate would have it, we signed a really nice lease with Amazon for 10 years back in, late December, early January, which was really good timing for us, because I wouldn't want to have a vacant 1 million square foot building right now in this environment. And so we're really happy about that. And we have an apartment building in near Fort Worth in northern Fort Worth, just on the edge of Haltom City in Fort Worth, and it's 90+% leased. And so it's a building that we'll probably be taking to the market soon. And then we're under construction and underway on 2 other 300-unit ground up apartment buildings, and looking to do a lot more on the apartment and the industrial side of things. And then you mentioned the two boards that I'm on, Altus Group, which is they're the company that owns the software product called Argus. And if you've ever dealt with, selling a building or valuing a building, you've probably used an Argus model. And so I got on that board about a year ago. And so that's been a lot of fun for me to watch the evolution of that company and the whole, explosion of property technology. And then GigaMonster is the other company that has gone through some explosive growth as well. And it was started by a friend of mine, and they basically provision internet, voice, video, and IoT for the apartment building world. And also they're getting into commercial. And we also have the assignment for provisioning internet to Wembley Stadium, Water Street, Tampa, and a few projects in Hudson Yards. And so we're branching out into those kinds of mixed use product as well. But the primary focus at this point in time is apartments. So it's a lot of fun.
So what is that about? I thought you were going to tell me when you left CBRE, you were going either to run for president of the United States or write a book for a couple of years, because I feel like I just heard the best story for a book. And I'm sure there's lots of relationships and interesting stories along the way that we don't have time for. But I'm really happy for you. And I know Brad, he's a great dude. Worked with him at Trammell Crow, knew him personally as well.
That should be your next interview.
Brad, for
Yeah.
sure, is in the other room.
Yeah, he is. He's literally like he's one or maybe two thin pieces of drywall between me and him right now.
Hilarious.
So,
so who were your mentors?
Yeah, so at Trammell Crow Company, I was very fortunate to have, in my very first years, to have sat on the same floor as Mr. Crow.
Wow.
And so there were people like Don Williams, Joel Peterson, who's chairman of JetBlue. In fact, here, I got to show you this.
There's the book right there.
So that is a book that Joel just sent me in the mail, and he just finished it. So I get to plug Joel's book. I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure it's brilliant. But it's people like that. I mean, so over my early career, I would say it's folks like that, and just everyday kind of people that I worked with. Just on a day-to-day basis. And then later on in my career, I would say for the last 20 years I had the same boss. It was Mike Lafitte, and Mike was and remains a big mentor for me and friend. And I would say in the industry too, Peter Beck, he's the son of the founder of the Beck Corporation, and just an amazing guy, very smart, very innovative. And also, I served with him on some Dallas oriented boards, but people like that, I mean, and that has been just an amazing part of growing up in this industry, is just how generous everyone is with their time. And as a result, I've really made a special effort to, if young people coming out of school want to talk about careers in real estate, my door is open. And I probably talk to about somewhere between 70 and 100 people a year that are thinking about real estate as a career. And I totally enjoy it. And honestly, I get as much out of it as I hope they do, because they are so creative and energetic and interesting coming out of college, and coming out of some of these graduate programs. and they just bring such an amazing perspective on how real estate is changing and how things are modernizing and how technology is being used to make things more efficient.
It's interesting that you're on boards of two technology-based companies and that you're also in two of the most stable markets right now in industrial and multifamily.
And
Um,
that was by design.
yeah, I would, yeah, clearly you're a smart dude. Are you also still doing some triathlons? Are you still a
Uh,
triathlete?
yeah, believe it or not, I am. I'm signed up for the half Ironman in Coeur d'Alene in Idaho. It got postponed. It was supposed to be in June, but they're pushing it back to September, and so I'm gonna do that. But yeah, I still get on the bike every weekend and pedal, you know, anywhere from 40 to 70 miles in the weekend, and I'm still running, and I'm swimming a little less, but I'm still, you know, running and biking quite a bit, and really enjoy that.
That's fantastic, man. I really appreciate you taking your time today. Like you just said about young people growing up, I would ask you, what pointers do you give those more generally than others to people coming out of undergrad or grad school wanting to get in this space?
Yeah, I think, you know, the main thing is, you know, bring your enthusiasm and bring your curiosity. Um, One of the things I learned early on in my life is I like variety. I like to work on a lot of different things all at once. And if that interests you, my biggest advice to everybody that I talk to is 90% of life is just show up and you know, show up and do the work. And if you're reliable and you have a you start to build a great reputation. And you know, that's what people want. They want responsiveness, they want integrity, they want know-how, they want people to know the markets that they're serving. And really, those are the very, you know, there you could count on one hand the ingredients of building a really solid career in real estate. And I think that would be my start at putting that list together.
When I first started at Crow, I don't know if you knew this, but I cold called Mike Lafitte. I figured work for the biggest, work for the best, and call the top guy at the time.
Perfect.
And I just wanted 15 minutes of his time. He gave them to me, and an hour and a half later, he said, I want you to go meet Dan Walker, Jack Parker, and a couple other guys, and let me know what feels right for you in your world, right? So I met these guys, fell in love with Jack Parker, construction management. And I got to tell you, these guys that were there were Jeff DeBryan,
Hmm.
who Cherry Lane project, you guys
Yep.
snagged from that arena. Um, and all these guys who had massive, general contractor experience or big, big five architectural firms. And I didn't have that, but I had a passion and I really enjoyed Jack a lot. As you know, Jack Parker's just one of the richest heart guys in the world. So that's what attracted me to that world. But I also had from that experience this massive worldview of connect points with guys like you and guys in analysts and developments. It really gave me a broader knowledge of where to be where I am today, right? So I think the bigger the ship gets, the harder it is to have those kind of conversations. But I think technology's really helped us, and especially the last couple of few months, we've really seen how it helps us connect and stay the course and passionate. So just even these conversations, I feel it. I feel your energy, and I thank you for that. Still, as we're friends today. So I won't take any more of your time. It's been a true honor and pleasure to be your friend and to have you on as the world works today. So stay safe, my friend. And
Thank you, buddy. It's
can
great to see you.
great to see you too. Can people reach you? Is there a way that people can connect with you and learn more about CLX and contact you
Yeah.
directly?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is just www.clxv.com. And then you can just contact me at tony.long@clxv.com. esteemed.com.
Awesome. Appreciate it, brother. Stay
All
safe. We'll
right.
talk soon. All
So
right.
good to see you.
You too, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye.